But the first thing I wanted to start out is not a solely AI related topic, but the fact that cloud spend is back. Synergy Research came out with Q1 numbers stating that the cloud infrastructure market has grown 21% year over year last quarter, which is the fastest that the cloud has grown in about 6 or 7 quarters, a year and a half. So the doldrums of the past year and a half, where things have only grown 12, 13, 14%, are gone for right now. The wallets are opening up again. And we've talked about this a little bit, but it looks like cloud spend and cloud FinOps have the need for them have not quite disappeared just yet.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. So we talked about this last week because
Mhm.
Microsoft reported their numbers and they were up, and everyone was sort of attributing them to AI. And then this, this last round also being sort of attributed to AI. We have news about AWS also showing positive numbers and that being attributed to AI. What I'm curious about it, however, is I wonder if we're connecting dots that don't exist.
Mhm.
Because again, everywhere I talk to folks, there's a lot of exploration, but nothing that would actually move the needle, not by this much, right? So this halo effect that people are talking about, if it's affecting all the major cloud providers, then is it really a halo? Is it really anything that it's, because the news last week was sort of this idea that because Microsoft made these big bets and that they went early, that it was causing people to shift spend to them because they wanted to be there. But now we're seeing that everyone is really, that we're seeing the entire industry growing. So I don't know if this is in fact something broader, that there is this, we're seeing a normal cycle. It's a massive amount of spend during the pandemic. And then we saw this sort of fall off as the people sort of had to digest that. And now we're just seeing the normal swing of the market. And it really has nothing to do with all of these moves around AI. And right now, if I had to bet, that's actually what I'm betting, that this is just a normal business cycle, that the reality is enterprise IT, as has been the case for the last 20 years, continues to be a strategic investment that has just been growing year over year pretty much ever. And that the pandemic caused a little bit of a blip in that. And that the AI stuff is almost more of, I don't want to say a distraction, because as we talked about, I think it's an important thing, but I don't know that it's what's really driving this. I think that the march to cloud is just something that is going to continue. Um, and we're just seeing overall spend, the overall importance of it. So right now, that was my read on this news. But I'm curious your take.
Yeah, I actually agree. I love AI. My firm's named AI, but I do feel like AI is a bit of a red herring here, because just thinking about cloud infrastructure growing from, call it 62 billion to 75 billion. I'm not saying that's exactly the right numbers, but somewhere along those lines over the past year, on a quarterly basis. So that $13 billion in spend, is that all AI? Are you telling me that, all these companies are now dumping millions of dollars of cloud spend directly into AI? I'm sure there's a few companies that are. There's always your 2%, 3% who are those, market facing experimenters who will try anything once. But for the vast majority of IT departments out there, I have to think that a lot of this is just projects that have been put off. Your standard applications, digital transformation, cloud migration, all this stuff that is honestly not super exciting, but has been taking up a lot of work. When you look at the standard software providers, call it the Informaticas, the Tableaus, the SAPs of the world, they're working like crazy right now, just pushing people from on-prem to cloud. That's happening right now in 2024 because enterprise applications are complicated. And I think that is really what's happening here.
Well, and I think we have to remember, right? I mean, I've been talking to a bunch of execs recently, and the vast majority of spend is has been, probably always will be, on bread and butter type functions, right? And
Mhm.
particularly in the so I think we often in enterprise tech make this big broad sweep when we talk about it, but there's really at least two classes. There's the really really big companies who are going to act much like tech companies, right? The largest, whatever, 100 companies in the world or so. These guys have a massive amount of spend. Their IT organizations or their tech organizations are typically larger than entire other companies, et cetera, right? And then you have
Mhm.
everyone else, which includes Fortune 500 companies, right? But this large, what I call the small to medium sized enterprise, often in hundreds of millions and billions of dollars in revenue. But these organizations, these CIOs, when you talk to them, their attitude is they're not doing a ton of development, or that development is occurring in other platforms like ServiceNow or Salesforce.
Mhm.
They're a SaaS first play. And so what is I think is interesting is that march is continuing. And of course, all those SaaS players that they're buying services from, what are they doing? They're buying cloud services because that's how they're supporting it. And, the
Mhm.
biggest ones like the Zohos of the world and a few others, we've seen this trend, are starting to actually build their own data centers again. But for the most part, those SaaS plays are all running on these cloud services. So I think this continued march, as people are just sort of doing their bread and butter business, is driving this continual shift. It may not be direct enterprise spend, but that this whole shift is driving this continued march to cloud. Because the reality is, well, many organizations may not, that we're seeing repatriation of some of these cloud workloads where they realized in a native form it didn't make sense to run in the cloud. And so they're maybe moving back to on-prem, but they're also then moving those workloads and looking for these SaaS solutions, which indirectly is leading to cloud growth. So I think that we're going to just continue to see this sort of bread and butter motion, and that's just still going to keep supporting the cloud providers.
Yeah, and just on a related note, with cloud spend, Amazon came out with its Q1 earnings numbers, and they're now up to $100 billion annual run rate. So fantastic job for them. But I did note that they said they did 25 billion in revenue with 9.6 billion in income. That's a hot big margin. That to me, this means they're selling a lot of stuff that is high margin stuff that has some room for cost cutting right now. So for all those companies out there that did FinOps once or some sort of audit and think that they cleaned up their cloud environments and they're all clean and ready to go, looks like there's been a lot of recent spend that now needs to be cleaned up again. So just be careful there. This is the time to not just sit on your laurels and say, "Hey, we cut those cloud costs once in 2021, and we did such a great job." And great job us. This is an
Well,
ongoing battle.